packed first-class cabin fell silent as Zara Johnson, the 19-year-old black tech prodigy, stood her ground against the hostile flight attendant. "I said move to economy where you belong," the attendant hissed, pointing to the white woman, waiting expectantly. Zara's hand trembled as she reached for her phone, pulling up the Skyline Airlines executive profile page. "Stephanie, is it?" Zara's voice carried through the cabin. "I'd like you to meet someone." She turned the screen toward the flight attendant. "That's me, Zara Johnson, majority owner of Skyline Airlines, your boss." What would happen next in this high-stakes confrontation that would change the airline industry forever? Before we dive into this shocking story of discrimination and justice, let us know where you're watching from. If you believe in standing up against racism and fighting for equality, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more incredible true stories of courage in the face of prejudice. Zara Johnson had always been exceptional. At just 17, while her classmates worried about prom dates and college applications, she developed an aviation logistics algorithm that revolutionized flight scheduling. The complex code could predict weather patterns, optimize fuel consumption, and reduce delays by a staggering 40%. Major airlines scrambled to license her technology, but Zara had bigger dreams. She grew up watching her parents struggle with discrimination. Her father, a brilliant aerospace engineer, was repeatedly passed over for promotions at Skyline Airlines, despite his exceptional qualifications. Her mother, an accomplished flight attendant, endured daily microaggressions until she finally quit. Their experiences shaped Zara's mission to transform the aviation industry from within. Using the millions from her algorithm patents, Zara executed a brilliant financial maneuver. Through a complex web of investment vehicles and shell companies, she quietly acquired 51% of Skyline Airlines stock over 18 months. The business world remained oblivious that a teenage black girl now controlled one of America's largest carriers. Only one person knew her secret: Vivian Blackwood, a 60-year-old former executive who had mentored Zara since discovering her talent at a high school science fair. Vivian had fought her own battles as one of the few black, female executives in aviation and recognized Zara's potential to create lasting change. "Remember," Vivian had cautioned during their last video call, "observation before action. Experience the airline as a passenger before revealing yourself to the board." That's exactly what Zara planned during this transcontinental flight from New York to San Francisco. Dressed in a Stanford University hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, she looked like any other college student. Her natural curls pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no designer accessories, nothing to suggest she was anything but ordinary. What Zara didn't know was that Stephanie Walsh, the senior flight attendant working first class today, had a 15-year history with Skyline. Stephanie had joined when the airline still proudly advertised its all-American image, a thinly veiled code for its predominantly white staff. As diversity initiatives slowly changed the company's demographics, Stephanie's resentment grew. 12 discrimination complaints had been filed against Stephanie over the years. All mysteriously disappeared, thanks to Richard Harmon, the airline's chief operating officer. Richard, a 55-year-old white man with political connections and old money, considered himself the airline's true authority. He'd been furious when anonymous investors acquired controlling interest but hadn't yet identified Zara as the buyer. As Zara settled into seat 3A, she noticed Jason Miller, a 34-year-old white man in an expensive suit, taking the seat beside her. He nodded politely, then returned to his legal briefs. The Baker and Associates civil rights law letterhead caught Zara's eye, but she thought nothing more of it. Just as boarding neared completion, Zara's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "We know who you are. Stay in your lane or regret it." She stared at the screen, heart pounding. Someone knew her identity, but who and how? The aircraft door closed with a heavy thud, sealing her inside with an unknown threat. The Boeing 787 hummed with pre-flight energy as final passengers stowed their belongings. Zara tucked her phone away, the threatening message still burning in her mind. She needed to stay calm and observe, just as Vivian had advised. This flight would reveal the true Skyline Airlines experience, but she never anticipated becoming the center of an incident herself. Stephanie Walsh strode through first class, her perfectly coiffed blonde hair bouncing with each step. She stopped beside each white passenger, offering warm smiles and personalized greetings. "Mr. Davidson, lovely to see you again." And, "Mrs. Peters, your usual champagne?" But when she reached Zara, her demeanor frosted over. "Ticket," Stephanie demanded flatly, hand extended. Zara presented her boarding pass. "Good afternoon." Stephanie scrutinized the ticket. Then Zara, eyes narrowing. "Are you sure you're in the right section?" Her voice carried, drawing attention from nearby passengers. "Yes, seat 3A." Zara pointed to her assigned spot. Stephanie's lips pursed. These tickets can be confusing. She spoke slowly, as if explaining to a child. "This is first class. Economy is toward the back." Jason Miller, the attorney beside Zara, glanced up from his documents with a frown. "I know what first class is," Zara replied evenly. "This is my assigned seat." Stephanie sighed dramatically and moved on, but returned minutes later with another flight attendant. "Carlos, we have a situation," she said loudly. "This young lady seems confused about her seating assignment." Carlos, a Latino man in his 30s, checked Zara's ticket and nodded. "Everything's correct, Stephanie. She's assigned to 3A." Stephanie's jaw tightened, but she walked away without another word. Zara exhaled slowly. The flight hadn't even departed, and already she'd witnessed discriminatory treatment firsthand. She made mental notes for future policy changes when a commotion at the front caught her attention. An older white woman with expensive jewelry and a designer handbag was speaking animatedly to Stephanie. Margaret Whitfield, heir to the Whitfield, hotel fortune and a regular first-class passenger, was accustomed to special treatment. Today, she wanted Zara's seat. "I specifically need that seat," Margaret insisted, pointing directly at Zara. "Window seats help with my vertigo." Stephanie nodded sympathetically. "Of course, Mrs. Whitfield, let me handle this." They approached Zara together, Stephanie now armed with authority and backup. "Excuse me," Stephanie announced loudly. "You'll need to relocate. Mrs. Whitfield requires your seat for medical reasons." Zara remained calm. "I'm sorry to hear about Mrs. Whitfield's condition, but I've paid for this specific seat." "Look," Stephanie's voice hardened. "We have a valued customer with medical needs. There's a perfectly good seat in economy." "Why economy?" Jason Miller interjected. "If it's just about a window seat, there are 3 other empty window seats. In first class." Margaret waved dismissively. "Those won't do. I need this particular side of the aircraft." The situation escalated as Stephanie's demands grew louder and other passengers began watching. Some looked uncomfortable, others openly curious about the unfolding drama. "I've asked nicely." Stephanie's voice dropped to a threatening whisper. "This isn't the place for people like you anyway. Either move voluntarily or I'll call security to remove you from this flight." The cabin fell silent. Zara felt dozens of eyes on her, judging, waiting. In that moment, she made a decision. Enough observation. It was time for action. "Stephanie, is it?" Zara's voice carried through the cabin as she reached for her phone. "I'd like you to meet someone." She turned the screen toward the flight attendant, displaying the Skyline Airlines executive profile page. "That's me, Zara Johnson, majority owner of Skyline Airlines, your boss." Gasps rippled through the cabin. Stephanie's face drained of color. Margaret Whitfield stepped back as if physically struck. "That's impossible," Stephanie stammered. "The majority shareholder is me," Zara finished firmly. "I own 51% of this airline. Now, would you like to explain why you're trying to remove the owner of Skyline from her paid first-class seat?" Carlos, the other flight attendant, looked mortified. Jason Miller was already typing notes into his phone, and Margaret Whitfield, for perhaps the first time in her privileged life, was speechless. "What do you think Zara should do next?" Comment number 1 if you think she should have Stephanie removed from the flight immediately. Comment number 2 if you believe she should continue observing to gather more evidence of discrimination. And if you've ever witnessed or experienced discrimination while traveling, hit that like button and subscribe to show your support for those fighting against Injustice every day. The tension in that first-class cabin was electric, but what happened next would shake the entire airline industry to its foundation. Would Zara use her power to exact immediate revenge, or was she playing a longer, more strategic game? And who sent that threatening text message? Stay tuned to find out how this confrontation escalates beyond anything Zara could have imagined. The engines roared as Flight 1923 finally departed, 40 minutes behind schedule. The cabin vibrated with tension thicker than the clouds outside. Passengers whispered behind hands and magazines, stealing glances at the unprecedented drama unfolding. In first class, Carlos Rivera, now the lone flight attendant serving the premium cabin, moved with nervous energy. Stephanie had been immediately reassigned to economy class, her face a mask of humiliation and rage as she retreated down the aisle. Every few minutes, Carlos approached Zara with increasingly desperate attempts at damage control. "Ms. Johnson, please accept our deepest apologies." He placed another complimentary champagne before her. The fourth she'd politely declined. "If there's anything at all you need, just treating all passengers with respect would be sufficient," Zara replied, her voice quiet but firm. She turned to her laptop, opening a secure email to Vivian Blackwood. Incident occurred on Flight 1923. Senior FA attempted to remove me from first class to accommodate white passenger claiming medical necessity. Explicit statement made about people like me not belonging in first class. Identified myself as owner. Documenting details for policy review. Meeting needed upon arrival. As Zara typed, she noticed a reflection in her screen. Margaret Whitfield, now seated across the aisle, was watching her while whispering to her seatmate. The woman's perfectly manicured hand partially covered her mouth, but Zara could read the doubt in her expression. Probably just lying about owning the airline. These people always exaggerate. Jason Miller, the civil rights attorney beside Zara, cleared his throat. "Don't let them get to you," he murmured. "I've seen this playbook before." He slid his business card onto her tray table. "Jason Miller, Baker and Associates. We specialize in transportation discrimination cases. What happened today wasn't an isolated incident." Zara studied the card. "What makes you say that?" "I've received complaints about Skyline for years. Never enough evidence for a class action. But today..." He glanced meaningfully around the cabin. Today was illuminating. Before Zara could respond, her phone vibrated again. Another text from the unknown number. "Ownership won't protect you for long. Board meeting in progress. Enjoy your temporary position." A cold wave of realization washed over Zara. Someone in the corporate structure not only knew her identity but was actively working against her. She quickly checked her secure executive portal and found an emergency board meeting had indeed been called by Richard Harmon, the COO. The official reason: addressing public relations crisis and leadership concerns. They were moving against her while she was literally in the air. At that exact moment, 35,000 feet below, Richard Harmon stood before the hastily assembled board members in Skyline's Manhattan headquarters. His tailored suit couldn't hide the sweat beating at his temples. "Gentlemen, ladies, we have a situation," he began, deliberately avoiding mentioning that the majority shareholder was absent. "An unfortunate incident has occurred that requires immediate action to protect the company's reputation and stock value." What Richard didn't know was that a passenger 6 rows behind Zara had recorded the entire confrontation. As the board meeting continued, the video was uploading to social media, buffered by the plane's spotty Wi-Fi but steadily gaining traction. Skyline racism began trending before Flight 1923 even reached the Midwest. Vivian Blackwood, monitoring the situation from San Francisco, watched with growing alarm as both the unauthorized board meeting and the viral video unfolded simultaneously. Her attempts to call Richard went straight to voicemail. Her emergency texts to Zara disappeared into the digital ether of airplane mode. By the time Flight 1923 began its descent into San Francisco International Airport, the video had 2 million views. The company's stock had dropped 12%, and a crowd of reporters awaited at the terminal. Zara felt the shift immediately, upon landing. As passengers activated their phones, Gasps and murmurs spread throughout the cabin. People were suddenly looking at their screens, then at her, with new recognition. "Ms. Johnson," Carlos approached, his professional demeanor cracking. "There appears to be a situation at the terminal. Airport security has requested you remain on board until they can escort you safely." "Security?" Zara questioned. "I don't need airline protocol, ma'am," he insisted. "For VIPs when there's media presence." Jason Miller leaned close. "Be careful," he warned. "I've seen corporate security used to isolate whistleblowers and complainants. They're not always there to protect you." Zara nodded almost imperceptibly as 4 uniformed security officers entered the aircraft. The lead officer, a stern-faced man with captain's stripes, approached with rehearsed courtesy. "Ms. Johnson will be escorting you through a private exit to avoid the media situation. Please come with us." As Zara gathered her belongings, she noticed something troubling. The security team wore Skyline Airlines patches, not airport security. Insignia. These men reported directly to corporate security, which ultimately answered to Richard Harmon. The realization hit her. She wasn't being protected. She was being contained. Passengers watched in silence as Zara was led through first class toward the front exit. Margaret Whitfield smirked openly as she passed. Through the small aircraft windows, Zara could see the media assembled on the tarmac, cameras ready. But the security team didn't lead her toward the terminal. Instead, they directed her down a service staircase to a waiting private vehicle with tinted windows. "Wait," Zara protested. "I need to make a statement to—" "Direct orders from corporate, Ms. Johnson," the security lead cut her off. "For your safety." As they ushered her into the vehicle, Zara glimpsed Vivian Blackwood arguing with airport staff at a distance, frantically trying to reach the aircraft. Their eyes met briefly before the car door closed, sealing Zara off from her only ally. The vehicle pulled away, not toward the main terminal but toward a separate administrative building. Zara's phone vibrated continuously with notifications, but when she tried to call Vivian, she discovered her signal was suddenly blocked. "We're taking you to a secure room," the security captain explained, his tone neutral. "The situation has escalated beyond our expectations." Minutes later, Zara found herself in what appeared to be a conference room in the administrative wing. The door closed behind the security team with an ominous click. She tried the handle, locked from the outside. What had begun as a simple observation, flight had transformed into something far more sinister. Zara Johnson, majority owner of Skyline Airlines, was now effectively a prisoner in her own company. Zara pressed her ear against the door, listening to the security team's retreating footsteps. The secure room was spacious enough, a corporate conference room with leather chairs and a polished table, but the locked door transformed it into a gilded cage. Through the window, she could see the distant terminal where crowds and camera crews had gathered, their presence confirming what she already suspected. This story had exploded. Her phone, though unable to make calls, still received data intermittently. Notifications flooded the screen faster than she could process them. The viral video, now viewed by millions, captured every moment of her confrontation with Stephanie. Hashtags proliferated. Flying Skyline Racism. For Zara Johnson. For First Class While Black. The airline's stock was in freefall, losing 20 points since the market opened. A financial alert caught her attention. Emergency Skyline board meeting results in chaos. Temporary leadership transition. The article was paywalled, but the headline told her enough. Richard Harmon was making his move while she was conveniently detained. Outside the administrative building, the scene grew chaotic. Reporters surrounded the main terminal, where passengers from Flight 1923 emerged with their own videos and testimonies. Airport staff, overwhelmed by the situation, struggled to maintain order. "Yes, she said she owned the airline," a middle-aged woman told Fox News. "The flight attendant was absolutely mortified when she found out. The way they treated her, before knowing who she was." Another passenger shook his head for the ABC cameras. "It was disgusting, plain and simple." Meanwhile, in the economy section of the deplaning area, Stephanie Walsh found herself surrounded by her own media contingent. Tears streamed down her face, smearing her perfect makeup as she delivered a carefully rehearsed statement. I've dedicated 15 years to Skyline Airlines, she sobbed. One misunderstanding, and my entire career is being canceled by social media. I have black friends. I've never discriminated against anyone. The cameras ate it up, broadcasting her tears nationwide. Across the airfield, Vivian Blackwood fought her own battle, showing her executive credentials to increasingly resistant security personnel. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer, she insisted, her authoritative voice carrying. I need immediate access to Ms. Johnson. Sorry, ma'am, the security officer replied, checking his tablet. Your credentials have been temporarily suspended. Direct orders from Acting CEO Richard Harmon. Acting CEO? Vivian's shock was genuine. That's impossible without a full board vote, which can't happen without the majority shareholder. Just following orders, ma'am. Inside the administrative building, Richard Harmon himself stood before a hastily assembled press corps, projecting calm authority. At 55, his silver hair and tailored suit embodied corporate America's idealized image of leadership. Skyline Airlines takes all allegations of impropriety seriously, he read from a prepared statement. The incident on Flight 1923 represents a serious departure from our company values. The employee in question has been suspended pending investigation, and we are reaching out to Ms. Johnson to address her concerns personally. A reporter shouted, "Is it true that Zara Johnson owns 51% of Skyline?" Richard's practiced. Smile never faltered. Ms. Johnson is an important investor who recently acquired shares through various investment vehicles. However, day-to-day operations remain under experienced leadership while we evaluate her potential contributions. At 19, she naturally requires mentorship in corporate governance. The dismissive words sparked fresh outrage online. Within minutes, the hashtag #JacaRichardHarmonisOverParty joined the trending topics. Back in the secure room, Zara finally accessed the company servers through her laptop, bypassing the room's communication blocks by connecting to an obscure administrative network she'd discovered during her preliminary research into the company. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Richard had called an emergency session citing leadership crisis. Using arcane bylaws, he'd convinced enough board members to grant him temporary executive authority. Critically, the vote wasn't valid without her participation. But Richard was moving forward anyway, counting on confusion and corporate bureaucracy to delay any challenge. As Zara dug deeper, another notification appeared. A direct message from Jason Miller. Security isolated you illegally. Attorneys at terminal. Need your location. Evidence suggests coordinated effort to remove you from power. Before she could respond, the conference room doors swung open. Two security officers entered, followed by a distinguished older woman Zara recognized immediately from company files. Margaret Whitfield's assistant. Ms. Johnson. The woman's voice was professionally pleasant. Mr. Harmon has arranged for your transfer to corporate headquarters for a full debriefing. A private car is waiting. Zara stood her ground. I'm not going anywhere. As majority shareholder, I demand immediate access to my executive team and the board. The woman's pleasant expression never changed. That won't be possible right now. The situation requires delicate handling, and Mr. Harmon feels. Mr. Harmon doesn't have the authority to detain me or make decisions without my input, Zara interrupted. What's happening is illegal corporate obstruction. The security officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Please don't make this difficult, the assistant continued. For everyone's comfort, we've arranged. My comfort? Zara's voice rose. Was it for my comfort that your security team locked me in this room? Is it for my comfort that Richard Harmon is giving unauthorized press statements about me? Or perhaps it's for my comfort that Stephanie Walsh is out there playing the victim after trying to remove me from my paid seat? The security officers shifted uneasily, clearly unprepared for this level of resistance. Ms. Johnson, we have orders to escort you. Your orders are invalid, Zara cut in sharply. And if you touch me without consent, that's assault. I suspect neither of you wants to risk your pensions on Richard Harmon's illegal power play. The standoff stretched into uncomfortable silence until one of the guards' radios crackled. Security. Team Alpha. Be advised. Federal transportation authorities have entered the terminal requesting access to all parties involved in Flight 1923 incident. Media presence has tripled. Repeat, federal authorities on site. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Self-preservation replaced corporate loyalty as the guards realized they stood at a pivotal moment in what was rapidly becoming a national scandal. "Ma'am," the lead officer addressed Margaret's assistant, "I think we need to reevaluate the situation." Before the woman could respond, the building's fire alarm blared to life, emergency lights flashing. Sprinklers activated, drenching everyone in seconds. In the confusion, Zara made her decision. Grabbing her belongings, she pushed past the disoriented group and ran for the emergency exit. The alarm wasn't an accident, she realized. Someone had created a diversion. As she burst through the exit door into the California sunlight, Zara found Vivian Blackwood waiting beside a nondescript sedan, driver's door open. "Get in!" Vivian shouted over the alarms. "Richard's playing hardball, and we need to move fast. He's deleted the discrimination complaints archive and convinced half the board you're staging a publicity stunt." Zara dove into the vehicle as security personnel emerged from the building behind them. As they sped away, Zara caught a glimpse of Jason Miller watching from a distance, phone raised to capture evidence of her effective detainment. The battle for Skyline Airlines had moved beyond a simple incident of discrimination. It had become a high-stakes corporate war, with Zara fighting not just for justice in one case, but for control of the company she rightfully owned. Vivian's sedan sped through the back roads of the airport complex, avoiding the main thoroughfares where news vans and airport security would be looking for them. Zara watched the administrative building shrink in the side mirror, her mind racing, faster than the vehicle. "They locked me in," Zara said, still processing the reality of her situation. "In my own company." "Richard's desperate," Vivian replied, eyes fixed on the road. "The board meeting was completely unauthorized. He's claiming emergency powers under a bylaw that hasn't been invoked since the airline's founding." Zara pulled out her phone, but the screen showed no signal. "They're blocking my communications somehow. Corporate security has signal jammers, technically illegal, but they use them for VIP privacy during sensitive executive transports." Vivian handed Zara a burner phone. "Use this instead. Clean, untraceable." Zara examined the basic flip phone. "Where are we going?" "Hotel suite I booked under a pseudonym. We need a secure location to regroup." Vivian took a sharp turn onto a service road. "Richard has consolidated power remarkably fast. He must have been planning this coup for months, just waiting for an opportunity." In the hotel suite 20 minutes later, Zara finally sat before a laptop with reliable internet access. The room's large windows offered a sweeping view of San Francisco Bay, but her attention remained fixed on the screen, where the full scale of Richard's operation was becoming clear. "I can't access half the executive servers," she muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. "He's locked me out of my own systems." "Try the backup network," Vivian suggested, "the one we established after detecting unusual activity last month." Zara nodded, switching tactics. Her exceptional programming skills had led her to create redundant access points when she first acquired the airline, a precaution that now proved prescient. After several tense minutes, she bypassed the security protocols. "I'm in, but something's wrong." Her voice tightened. "Files are disappearing in real time. Someone's deleting the discrimination complaint archives." On the screen, document folders vanished one after another. Years of evidence, hundreds of complaints detailing systemic racism within the airline, all systematically erased from the central servers. "That's illegal destruction of evidence," Vivian gasped, leaning over Zara's shoulder. "They're covering their tracks." "Not just covering tracks." Zara's eyes narrowed as she typed furiously. "They're building a counter-narrative. Look at these new documents being uploaded." The screen displayed a series of fabricated performance reviews and incident reports, all painting Zara as an unstable, inexperienced investor making irrational demands. There were even doctored emails supposedly from Zara to Stephanie, threatening the flight attendant before the flight ever took place. "They're framing me," Zara whispered, "making it look like I orchestrated this whole incident as a publicity stunt." Vivian shook her head in disbelief. Richard always played